So today's seminar, we're going to talk mainly about supplements in many different ways. One thing is we are launching a new supplement line, so I'm going to talk a little bit about our supplement line. But realistically, what I did is I took all the supplements, different categories that we have, from fat loss supplements to recovery supplements, lots of variations of supplements out there. I broke it down into what's the best, like the things that I believe in, what we believe in that fit kind of our goals, as well as I want this to be a little bit interactive. I mean, you guys, there's a lot of like misknown stuff out there, and I want if there's something that you guys have a question about, please ask me. Can't guarantee I have an answer because there's so many types of supplements out there, but at least lets me know, okay, I'm going to take a note and I can get back to you guys on that and learn a little bit more about that. So, all about supplements. The first rule of supplements says it in their name, is they are supplements. So if we were to build like a pyramid of health, right, on nutrition, the bottom part would be your lifestyle. So lifestyle means like how often do you go out to eat? How often do you eat with family? Maybe your social support system. That's an important category. That's the bottom of the pyramid. If we can control how much we eat out and other facts like that, we're going to get pretty good results. Above that is like just like quality of food. So we call it real food. So how much quality food do you have? Above that would be portion. And then we get into micro nutrients, macro nutrients, and this way up here, supplements. So in terms of that, supplements aren't actually, like, when you look at the grand scheme of it, are not as important as people probably put out there. I do think they are important. I think the average person probably does need to have a certain amount of supplements in their diet to make up for some things that they're missing down here. However, I think people rely way too much on supplements for fat loss. So as we go through this today, we just want to remember that no matter what we talk about, the first rule of supplements is it's just a supplement. They're not going to fix anything, they're just going to make a little bit of addition to make our diet better. Here's my goals today. Teach you the supplements I believe best that fit our 5 pillars of fat loss, and we'll talk about that here in a second. Answer any questions you might have about supplements, and learn things you want to know about supplements. Meaning, like, so I have listed out different things that I believe are important about supplements, but you guys can ask me as many questions you want. And I also want to learn, like, what are the questions that you guys might have that I haven't answered, so that way I can learn what do I need to learn. Especially as we create a new supplement brand, we want to make sure that we are filling that need in what you guys need. Okay, so 5 pillars of fat loss. This is literally going to be part of like everything I ever talk about. This is the underlying idea of how we achieve results here at CBD. So our goal today, what I'm trying to do is I want to make sure that when I choose a supplement to teach you guys about, it has to fit one of the 5 pillars, right? So it could be something that helps out your exercise or workouts. It could help out with stress management, sleep, nutrition, or a lifestyle change, right? So every single time we choose something, if it doesn't fit inside of that spectrum, it probably doesn't have a lot to do with the type of supplements that we currently believe here at GCB. Of course, all of our stuff always has to come back with fat loss, and these things up here have to do with fat loss. So it means I'm probably not going to teach you guys something about what testosterone supplements, right? They probably don't have a lot of things to do with what your guys' goals are. So realistically, there's a ton of supplements out there. Not that we don't have expertise on them, but at the same time, I don't know how important they are for fat loss, so I usually don't go into those categories. Now, testosterone for a male has benefits for fat loss, but a female doesn't. So there's different ways we can talk about those too as we go. So, first category we're going to go into is fat loss. So I honestly believe everything that we're going to talk about today does have to do with some spectrum of fat loss. Meaning it fits in one of the 5 pillars, and all the 5 pillars are important for fat loss. But this is one that would directly just really help with change body fat mass, right? So we have our in-body scan here. I know both of you guys have done in-body scan in the past. So on that, one of the things that we really pay attention to is body fat percentage. That's your body fat mass. So these supplements are some of the things that I have researched, studied, and found that these probably have the most direct impact on overall fat mass change, right? So the different categories we have, or different supplements we'll go through each one, is caffeine. Caffeine is an amazing tool for fat loss. It can be taken many, many, many ways. The important part about caffeine for fat loss specifically is actually it's not as high a dose as most people think. So 80 to 100 milligrams is kind of the sweet spot for fat loss. Meaning a cup of coffee is about the right amount of caffeine, or a cup of tea is about the right amount of caffeine for fat loss purposes. Somebody that needs a little bit more energy, they feel like they're sleeping and stuff, they might need more higher doses of caffeine. But for fat loss purposes, it's not valuable. based on some research studies, it actually shows that if you get above that 200 milligram category, you're probably having a negative impact on fat loss. It's mainly throwing off your hormonal systems a little bit. So realistically, we want to stay a little bit lower on caffeine. We want to use it as a true supplement, not as like a drug in a sense. When we use it all the time consistently, I know I'm in that category, I drink way too much caffeine a day. I'm definitely not using it for caffeine or for that purpose. I'm using it more for energy purposes instead of actual fat loss. So some of the different ways to get this, green tea, that's a great way to get it. Another good way would be, you can get it inside of a lot of supplements. Like, so we have our thermal product, it has caffeine anhydrous in it and a green tea supplement in it too. There's a lot of different ways to get caffeine. One of my simplest ideas for that is if you like a black coffee, a simple black coffee once a day is all you're going to need for that in terms of that, right? So a lot of supplements out there have been really, really heavy on the caffeine side. They go way overboard of it. It's kind of that more is better philosophy. So they go really high on it, but unfortunately it's not when it comes to fat loss purposes. But caffeine is probably something that you have to be cautious of. One, because you have to be cautious for the fact that like, you have to be smart. Like if you're taking a pill like this or you're taking coffee, you have to be smarter when you take it. So I am not very caffeine sensitive, which means I can have caffeine pretty late in the day and it doesn't really affect me at all. Other people can't have caffeine after 12, right? So when you are using caffeine as a supplement, we gotta make sure we're smart about it. So if you're gonna use it in a pre-workout, so something like a BCA, if you would have caffeine inside of that, you would want to make sure that if you're somebody that's caffeine sensitive, you only have it a pre-workout in the morning one, but if you're somebody that works out in the evening, you probably don't want to have caffeine inside of that supplement. Does that make sense? Because we want to make sure we're very smart about how caffeine is used, because it is a supplement that can affect your sleep. CLA, the actual name for it is a long, it's congenial linoleic acid, but this is a type of fat that actually helps metabolize fat. So it increases the amount of specific enzymes and proteins that are involved in the fat breakdown. So what it does is it actually takes body fat itself in the cell. So our cells, our adipose tissue, literally are full of fat cells. We are born with a specific amount of fat cells in our body. No matter what, whatever you're born with, you have that many fat cells. You can never get rid of them. You can't actually make more, I believe. We definitely can't ever get rid of the amount of fat cells for them. But they're empty, right? So somebody that has a six-pack abs, they have just as many fat cells as if they were 300 pounds. But they have nothing in them, right? They're flat. So in terms of that, what we can do with the CLA, what it does, it can go into those cells and help metabolize that fat and pull it back out of those cells. Not that it's going to be all of a sudden just empty out all the cells, but the idea is it slowly helps be able to metabolize that fat. We still, just with anything else, you have to have a calorie deficit to make sure that it actually is working in that way. It was one of the tools that actually works. It's probably a little bit like a hidden secret a little bit in nutrition. I mean, CLAs, a lot of people don't know about it. I've never even heard of that before. Been around for a while. Actually, the funny part, the person that invented it is in Lake Geneva. Was the first that invented, found the CLA originally. My uncle was a nutritionist, actually knows the guy personally, and he actually found it like probably 30 years ago or whatever, and he's actually out of Lake Geneva. So in terms of that, CLAs are an awesome little supplement. We will be carrying a CLA. Hey, I don't have it. Just not here, but we will be keeping one of those. But in terms of that, it's a way to metabolize fat pretty easily. Raspberry ketones. So raspberry ketones are my way of kind of using something that can boost your metabolism without having to go into like ephedrine. So ephedrine, if you guys know, for like probably about 10 years ago, was really popular in weight loss drugs. So what they would do is, but basically they cause heart attacks and things like that, just severe issues. But it was something that really could get great results. So the raspberry ketones that were found, were usually paired with this ephedrine, happen to have very good effects as well. So eventually the government deregulated ephedrine, got rid of it. Not really got rid of it, they had to morph it in a different way so it's not as intense. It's still technically out there, you can find in certain supplements. We don't recommend anything with ephedrine. But raspberry ketones are another great component. What it does is literally just takes the metabolism and speeds it up a little bit. So how it does is it takes the ketones. So ketones, you guys are probably familiar if you've ever heard of the keto diet. The whole idea is they're working on ketones. It's a type of protein that the body can actually utilize. So it's utilizing that thing, and so it helps increase the adipectin. That is protein, that's a type of protein, a hormone that helps regulate metabolism. So all it's trying to do is use that protein to help regulate metabolism go along, which actually helps with the liver. The liver is the main fat loss tool in terms of our body. We metabolize all fat through the liver, and so that's actually helping with that process. So raspberry ketones are pretty awesome. You can give them in simple little like pill form, like a pill form of those. Like this thermal, we made sure we put it inside of that to make sure that raspberry ketones are in there, because we're not going to use the Fedra and things like that. It's just we had to use that as a tool inside of this as raspberry ketones. But raspberry ketones are an awesome way. We've been selling those for probably the last year in the gym, and I know some people that have been taking it consistently that have had really good results from it. L-carnitine. So this one in the science is kind of hit or miss, but you find it in pretty much every type of supplement that has to do with fat loss. The science doesn't exactly prove this, but it supposedly turns fat into energy for burning as fat. It just happens to be always laced with everything that has to do with that. So everything they go through it, they don't really have good studies that show that L-carnitine is that important. It's not something that something you can take on its own. It has to be paired with other things. So I think, in my mind, based on all the things that I've researched, it's just a good thing to be paired with other fat loss tools, but by itself, it's not a fat loss tool on its own. So this idea is what we'll talk about through the next few slides. Is stacking is a very valuable tool to use for fat loss. So if you just took raspberry ketones, probably have a minimal effect. If you took raspberry ketones with caffeine and L-carnitine together, you probably have a pretty good, because they stack on top of each other. They each have a benefit, right? One's working with the liver, one's trying to work and burn fat, and the other one's trying to give a certain amount of energy to stimulate metabolism, right? So sometimes I always say, if you have L-carnitine in there, you might not need the CLA because they're kind of using the liver the same way. If you want to boost your fat burning a little bit more, the CLA is going to be a little bit more valuable to have those both combined. So stacking those things together, that's why usually when we try to make a product, we're trying to stack as much as we can get away with inside the product, so we don't have to have multiple products. But certain things don't pair together. With this one in our thermal product, we're stacking these three, but the CLA can be mixed into those products. So as we go along through our product design over the next couple of years, we have to make sure that when we stack this together, that oil, the fat that's in there, can't be put in a pill like that, because they don't. These are powder, whereas that's an actual oil. So things that you'll learn over time as we start to get better with our supplement design.
May I ask a question?
Yeah.
So years ago, I had tried another fat loss stack that I read about in the book, and it seemed like a couple of the ingredients were the same or similar to what you had on the previous slide, but then a couple were different. It worked really well.
Yeah.
But I had to go off it because I've got hypertension, and I noticed that when I took that stack, it caused my blood pressure to spike.
Yeah.
For your thermo stack, which is somewhat similar or somewhat different than another one, do you have an idea of what the impact on that would be on blood pressure?
So blood pressure is going to come usually from two things, and it's probably one of the things is probably too high level of caffeine. So we did try to keep the caffeine level slightly lower, mainly because most people are drinking coffee and other things throughout the day, so you have to look at how you pair those together. The other thing is, how many years ago do you remember? 5 years ago, 3 years ago?
Probably in the range of 5 years ago.
Okay, yeah. So it kind of depends on other products that, unfortunately, over the years, it's just something. So one issue with supplements is they aren't regulated by the FDA. Okay, so that's a negative for them. I don't know if the FDA is always the perfect example of everything either, but that's a whole other story. But in terms of that, they're not regulated by the FDA. So over time, what they do is products get into the industry that end up having negative effects that aren't realized, and eventually just get taken out of the industry. So in terms of that, I don't know what would be in that stack exactly. For high blood pressure, I wouldn't have imagined there's anything in here specifically that could do that, because we do keep the caffeine level on the lower side. But looking at this, there's nothing that would be hypertension based. No, because we use on the bulk side, which would be something that could be because of your cholesterol issues. We're using cola nut instead, so I would say probably not, but I don't know that answer until you somebody that has issues with hypertension would be using it, to be honest. It's a good question. Please ask questions as we go along. So with hypertension too, a lot of that can be blood pressure in general, right? So there's a lot of other factors that are taken into play there to see what those same things will do. Usually, oils would be something we'd be a little bit more cautious of. I don't know enough about CLA in terms of knowing that for hypertension, but I'd be more worried about something that was that type of an oil, liquids-based thing, so like an omegas. Omegas wouldn't have anything to do with anything. But like an omega oil, these pills here are going to be actually like gel, right? So that would be something I'd worry more about than like a powder variation of it. Sleep subs. So sleep supplements are honestly I think are really important. So when we talk about supplements, there's a few different things that I think are more important than others. So for fat burning, I don't honestly know if fat burning is that important thing. If you eat really healthy, you eat real foods, not too much, mostly plants, probably don't need fat burning supplements in all honesty, right? They're more of really like a jump start. They probably take you over the edge a little bit, but probably not that much. C-plus supplements, I actually see a direct impact from them right away. And I think that's kind of the things I like about supplements. What are things that can impact us very quickly? So melatonin. Melatonin is an awesome tool because it can help regulate sleep cycles, right? It can help get you to sleep a little better. But the issue with it is the body can become very dependent on melatonin. So let's talk about that in two different ways. One is it bad if the body becomes dependent on it? Realistically, probably not if you always have melatonin, right? If you always have melatonin, and you can always take melatonin, the body just needs to have that certain amount of melatonin. So is that bad? Probably not if you always have melatonin. I usually don't like to do things that the body has to become very dependent on. I say that with the mindset that my body's probably pretty dependent on caffeine right now. So in terms of that, so I don't know how well that is overall. However, the thing with melatonin is that 2 to 10 grams is a very important number. So if we, based on the scientific studies, if you can stay under that 10 gram thing, your body naturally doesn't become dependent on it. It's not enough melatonin to become dependent on. So you'll see out there this fast dissolving tablets are 20 milligrams, right? There'll be 30 milligrams, or that's getting to that point where it's just like more is better idea, but it's actually not. Now, you will probably get a deeper sleep on those. However, your body becomes very, very dependent on it. We don't want to create a dependency. So if we can keep that 2 milligrams, that 10 milligrams sweet spot, we're looking for those. Like, so inside of our deep sleep, we have 2 milligrams, we try to keep it on the smaller side. However, I've used in the past the 10 milligram like neutral ones that dissolve. Those are great too. I just want to make sure I'm staying into a category that's a little bit on the lower side. It took me a while to figure that out. I used to always think more is better until we did some deeper research and realized that I was sleeping really well, but I always would need a little bit more and a little bit more as I got over that number. I would need more melatonin. So just be a little careful with melatonin. Melatonin also increases serotonin. So serotonin is a hormone that can be very valuable, but too much serotonin, just like anything else, can be negative. So we just gotta make sure we keep that melatonin in check a little bit. Passiflora extract and or ashwagandha, right? So these are two separate supplements, but they do the exact same thing. So these herbs are used to treat anxieties, insomnia, seizures, and hysteria. So realistically, what it's trying to do is it's a calming effect. But the idea of that part of that supplement, well, supplements won't have both of them, they'll have one or the other because they kind of do exactly the same thing. But the idea here is what we're trying to do is calm the body, take it from a sympathetic nervous system to a parasympathetic nervous system before bed. So those are good ways to be able to do that. You will see in a lot of teas, they'll have like the bedtime teas, they'll have ashwagandha root as their main thing for that. So that's kind of looking for that. I think that's a good tool to use, especially if you like tea before bed. I can't do tea because I have a tendency to have to pee a lot after I have tea, so it doesn't work out very well, but those are pretty good supplements to have in there as well. CBD oil, I am a huge proponent of CBD oil, but it also depends on where you fit on the spectrum of CBD oil. So I don't really worry about the idea of THC. That's like the psychosomatic part of CBD oils, right? Cannabinoids, right? So in terms of that, most CBD oils have what's called traces of THC, which means it has nothing high enough to get you any high at all. So you don't have to worry about that. They also do make them THC free. However, based on everything I've studied, and I've done a pretty deep dive on CBD oils because it took me a while to switch from omegas to CBD oils for myself because I didn't know enough about it, so it took a long time to be able to make that switch. And when I went through the research and learned all about those, and I've been doing CBD oils probably about 3 years now. And when I went through the research, the fact that like the THC, just that little bit that traces, actually had a better impact on sleep. The THC free versus the one that has it in there, they both do the same for inflammation properties, which we'll talk about on inflammation a little bit, but same for inflammation properties. So if it's just to reduce inflammation, either one's optional. But when it comes to sleep, the THC has a tendency to help with sleep and recovery time more. So again, it's traces, but if you, a lot of things I've learned is if you take a drug test, it'll never show up on a drug test, but if you're, I always say, this is my misnomer, I was like, not a doctor thing, If you do have to take drug tests consistently for work and they do use anything to do with marijuana, I always just like, hey, let's just try to go here and not even worry about it because I don't want to be the person responsible for that at all. So that's what my always recommendation is. Most people don't have to worry about that, especially in the state of Illinois now. Milligrams is dependent mostly on body size. So when you take the tinctures, so the tinctures are like a bottle, right? And it has a dropper in it. And they'll be like 300 milligrams, 600 milligrams, 1,000 milligrams, 1,500 milligrams. Really the amount of milligrams you want is based on your body size. So a bigger individual like me, I'm gonna take 1,000 milligrams to 1,500 milligrams. The negative of that is, yeah, that's a lot of milligrams, but the more milligrams, if you guys ever looked up CBD oil, it's super expensive. So the bigger you are, the more expensive it gets. So in terms of that, 1,000 milligrams, I usually recommend for most women, I kind of put it in men and women categories just based on body sizes. Most women are going to be about 300 milligrams, most men will be about 600 milligrams, because most guys aren't like 250 pounds of muscle like I am, so I think they'll be a little bit higher because of the amount of muscle mass I have compared to body fat. So in terms of that, I would say most females are probably about 300 milligrams, 600 milligrams for men. You just take the dropper, you put it underneath your tongue, you hold it there for a minute, and then swallow it from there, and it happens pretty good for sleep. I have to say that's probably the thing that has helped me the most with my restless leg syndrome. So I have restless leg syndrome. It's the one thing that's helped the most with me from moving consistently throughout the night. And I've put a lot of things in place for my sleep, and that was the one that actually I could see a direct impact. That is a product that in the past we've carried. I want to keep carrying it. The only issue is it's really hard for us to get in the brand that we get it. So maybe someday we'll have it back up and stuff. I try to keep it up there, but we ran out and they've been out for like 6 months now. So magnesium. So this one I honestly haven't used in terms of in my current nutritional diet because CBD oil has helped a lot. But magnesium is another thing that's supposed to help a lot with restless leg syndrome. So what it does, it helps reduce tension on the muscle and nerve systems. So if you're somebody that is a restless sleeper, if you're somebody that moves around a lot in your sleep, magnesium can help with that. A couple different ways to do it. They have ZMA products. So the ZMA product is zinc, magnesium. So the zinc doesn't have a lot to do with sleep. It has a lot to do with recovery. The magnesium is more of the sleep component of it. So you just take like a tablet of that, or some people take it in powdered form as well. That's an easy way to do it. There's a little bit of magnesium in our deep sleep here as well. It's one of those things that you can also get from the Epsom salt baths. So you can get it from Epsom salt as well. So there's another way. There's different ways to get it into your system. I just read an article recently from a guy that uses magnesium a lot. His favorite way to do it is you can get it in cream and wipe it on your skin. And what he does is he puts it on his hamstring glute area because he has a lot of knee restless leg syndrome. And just absorbing through the skin, he feels finds it quick because magnesium in those direct spots actually works pretty beneficial. So it's actually something I've been having some lower back issues recently, so it might be something that might be worth getting in cream form to see if that helps out a little bit with my restless leg because it has kicked up a little bit, but it also moved up a little bit without CBD oil, which is a bad idea.
So before you turn the slide, so in your deep sleep capsule, which of those things are in there?
Melatonin, magnesium, and I think we used ashwagandha. No, we used the passiflora extract. So yeah, we use these and a little magnesium. However, CBD oil has to be done separately. It has to be in like a tincture. It doesn't have to be in a tincture form. You can do it in cream form as well. I like the cream form for muscle injury, right? So in terms of if I have like a direct impact injury, we'll actually talk about it on the slide later on, but I'll explain now. Is if I have a direct impact kind of thing, I'm probably going to put CBD cream right on that spot. If I want it for sleep purposes, I'm going to take it in the tincture form underneath. But we do have the other three inside there. CBD oil does have to be separate. It can be done in cream form as well. Again, I don't know if I find the cream form any value for sleep purposes, but it will be good for information we'll have on our information slide. Or maybe I don't have it on there, but I know I talked about it later on. So, okay, inflammation supplements. I'll probably always come back to omega-3s. So omega-3s are one of the best supplements probably that there ever's been made. And the more society moves towards processed foods, the more important that supplement's going to become. So omega-3, you need 3 grams of it daily, which is usually means you have to take 3 pills because they're usually 100 milligrams or 1 gram. What it does is it reduces the omega-6 from seeds and processed foods. So in our normal natural diet, back in the Neanderthal times, we didn't have to worry about omega-3s because we definitely ate seeds and stuff. We got a lot of omega-3s from beef, grass-fed beef, meats and stuff. We never get from grass-fed beef, it's a big category to get it from. We can also get it from the ocean, from crustaceans, stuff like that. So, but because of that, we would get a lot of omega-3s, but we also wouldn't get very many omega-6s because we didn't find seeds and stuff all the time. They were harder for us to get. So what happened though, over as we started to become like farmers and stuff like that, we created a lot more products that had a lot more seeds, which had a lot more omega-6s, a lot more plant-based stuff. Well, the issue is, plant-based stuff then eventually turned into processed foods. As we get processed foods are loaded with omega-6s. So omega-6s aren't bad, it's just you can't have a bad, it's a ratio. We have to have a certain amount of omega-3s to omega-6s to omega-9s, right? So if you put it in a category like this, we have a small Venn diagram. It would be like 3, 6, 9. We're naturally going to have a bigger of 6s than 3s and 9s, but what it really looks like in the current diet for an average person is like that, right? So this is 3, 6, 9. The issue is in our natural American diet, and this all comes back to American diet comparable, is we don't get a lot of omega-3s in the diet. So if you start to think about what things are omega-3s, grass-fed beefs, the average butcher that you go to in terms of like at the Mariano's, things like that, normally the foods that they have there aren't omega-3s. You can get them, you can get grass-fed, but you have to go find the grass-fed stuff. Maybe you go to a regular butcher, you might find it a little bit more, but in terms of like Mariano's, Jewel stuff, you have to go look for the grass-fed. So you're not probably getting it through your meat as much as you used to get it through. The average person in this area probably doesn't eat at least a serving of fish a week or multiple servings of fish a week. I think what it was, you have to eat like 3 salmon steaks a week to equal the amount of what we need to outdo what we're doing currently in omega-6s. So realistically, I know for me, for sure, we don't definitely eat that much fish when it comes out. Like last night I had an awesome meal, we went out to Enzo's, what was the places?
Enzo and
Lucia's?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're like a Italian place in Long Grove. And I had my whole plate was octopus, calamari, shrimp, and oysters. So I got a ton of omega-3s in my diet. But that's probably the only time I'll have it all month. So in terms of like omega-3. So in terms of that, you can see the ratio should be a lot closer. So the reason that omega-3s are so important is the more processed foods we get into our diet here, the more important we have to get omega-3s. So I do think it's something that we probably do have to supplement within our society. CBD oils do help a little bit in that, but they're not, CBD oils aren't omega-3s by themselves. So we probably do need to supplement both with that and omega. But they're a great product. They've been around for a long time. There's studies on both different sides of the omega-3s. But here's what it comes down to being, is the studies are based on fish oil versus omega-3s. So fish oil itself, you get a product that says just fish oil, you have to look at it and make sure that it has DHEA, which is the type of omega-3 fatty acid. The average fish oil pill you'll take, let's say you go to Sam's Club and you grab fish oil from Sam's Club, right? And I had a mixture less than raw mix. My mom used to buy all my supplements for me, and she'd get them in there and didn't know much about fish oils. And so I just take those. And if you look at that pill, it actually has omega-3s, omega-6s, and omega-9s in there. Well, now I just tripled my omega-6s in my thing. It still has the wrong ratio, right? The ratio is still pretty much higher because omega-6s are way cheaper to put in there. You just put like safflower oils and things like that now. So it's way more expensive that way, way more cheaper for them to make it that way. So I was taking a fish oil, thinking I was doing pretty good on my omega. I didn't know it was omega-3s at the time, I thought it was just fish oil. In terms of that, I wasn't actually doing myself a negative harm. So it's very important to make sure that what you're getting is omega-3s. So that's why with this product, we made sure we focused mainly on omega-3s. Sometimes you can't make omega-3s without having some omega-9s in there. Omega-9s are obstacle, as you see here. It's omega-6s that are obstacles, so we have to avoid those. Again, the goal of all these supplements in this category are reducing inflammation. So the issue with having a lot of omega-6s in your diet, which is processed food, is joints and stuff become pretty sore and pretty stiff, right? So, I mean, anybody that ever exercises like that, you're already getting natural soreness. It's just the difference between natural soreness in the muscles and the soreness in the joints are two different categories. So we don't want to have a lot of soreness in the joints. Inflammation is not bad for the sake of inflammation. Inflammation is actually our body's way to help heal and recover itself. So if we have a direct impact on our body, actually one of the best things is not to actually isolate right away. We actually want the inflammation to happen because we want the body to be able to recover from it. It's using that as a tool. However, built up long-term chronic inflammation, that's a negative because now our body's fighting something all the time and it's swelling in those joints. That usually means there's something wrong in our body trying to fix. If the thing is wrong, it's trying to fix the omega-6s. We have too much in our body, so it's building up in those joint areas. So that's why we have to kind of reduce it. Now, just by taking some omega-3s a day doesn't fix the problem though, however. Meaning like in your diet, you have to look at reducing the processed foods. The more processed foods we can reduce, the better back. Because that guy's going to give us a little bit of boost here. You know, let's say the omega-3, you get your 3 grams a day, takes you to here. We still have a pretty big number here. So our other goal is trying to reduce this guy at the same time, right? And by doing that, one of the best ways to do is not stop eating plants. Seeds are still good, vegetables are still good, things like that. We need to reduce that processed food category. Cumin or turmeric, these are another awesome thing. They're usually stuck into a lot of different pills, but you can also use it like cumin. We'll talk about that later on. I have as a tip. You can use that on different like vegetables and stuff like that. Turmeric, you can use that way too. You can get it in liquid form as well. Otherwise, it's stuck inside of different inflammatory products. So I don't have it here. We have a product called Flex. Flex has some turmeric in it as well. So you would like to have, if possible, 500 milligrams daily. That's the beneficial side for inflammation purposes. You can take these in pill form, liquid form, or you can put it on food as a spice as well. So that idea there is just trying to keep adding more and more things to the plate to help battle the inflammation category. One of the things to do with age is we age, we naturally get more inflammation as well. So we have to keep battling that more and more as we get older. Super greens. Now, one of the issues with super greens, so if you guys have ever done super greens before, there's a powder that you put in your drink. It's just green powder. I have tried probably 20 different super greens in my life. And there's a reason I don't do super greens, because they taste absolutely horrible. They're going to tell you, we actually did come out with a super greens product. It tastes much better than that. However, even with most things, it depends on your vegetable intake. I still have to make sure I put a little bit extra, like if I want to have orange juice or something else like that. But in terms of that super greens, the issue is they are pretty bland, because they are just like, you're getting a ridiculous amount of micronutrients in there. So things that you normally get through vegetables and fruits, you're getting that more in a powder form. They are awesome because they are loaded with micronutrients. It's a simple way to be able to, now, I still want somebody to eat their 5 servings of fruits and vegetables a day, adding this to the plate, but if you're somebody that has a tendency not to get those in, this can help out. Also, the more of those micronutrients we get into our current diet, just the better overall chance we're going to have to reduce inflammation in the body. Micronutrients, so your macronutrients are protein, fats, and carbs. Your micronutrients are all the vitamins and minerals and everything else. The bigger number those micronutrients are, the more full. So if you look at like MyFitnessPal, like how much of the 100% are there, right? Vitamin 100%. Micronutrients, those kind of things, we want to get higher. Super greens, instantly by putting a scoop in that of most super greens that are out there, if you can find a tasty one, it's good. But if you can get that, you can instantly move those categories up pretty quickly. The nice thing is in the powder form, they're very absorbable. It's the same thing that I've seen ones out there. There's a company called Juice Plus, I think it is, and they have the gummy style too. That's another good way. Gummies are great because you can digest them pretty quickly. I would never want to do that in anything that was like capsule would be okay, but I never want to do it in like a hard form because your body would never digest them. So, load of anti-inflammatory vitamins and minerals, along with digestive. In ours, we try to make sure. So another category that's important, not for inflammation, but just for the body in general, is probiotics. Probiotics are good for gut health. So we make sure we put digestive and probiotics in there. So there's enzymes. So our cleanse is this guy right there. Cleanse. So digestive enzymes are really important for breaking food down. And you need digestive enzymes, one in the stomach, and that's where the cleanse takes care of that. And the other one is you need it in the colon as well. So this is where our food actually is broken down. It helps break the food down. So probably, I don't know if this is American society, but society in general, we have a tendency not to masticate enough, right? We don't chew our food enough to get it down so it breaks down easily. One thing we can always do is we can chew more. You know, it's supposed to be 30 times, you're supposed to chew for every piece of meat, you have to chew 30 times, right? That's a lot of bites. We don't naturally do that as an American society. So as that goes down into the thing, say that you get chewed down, we get 15 bites out of it. As it gets down, we have to continue to break it down so that we can now pull all the nutrients out of it. So you start with digestive enzymes in the stomach, start breaking that down, so it starts to push those nutrients out there. And we get in the colon. The colon is the second place where the body absorbs a ton of nutrients. It's pretty much the whole intestine area is really where it is. So we want to get those digestive enzymes there. So those digestive enzymes are one in the stomach, and the probiotics are the thing that's in the colon area, right? So we want to make sure that we get those in. We used to do a lot of probiotics here back in the past. We went away from it because it's very hard to find a good quality probiotic. The issue with probiotics is you need to have 15 billion units in it, and most probiotics are like 1 billion. So what they do is you would have to take 15 of those pills, and it's just not worth taking those. You can also get them in liquid form too. Only problem with liquid form is you have to keep them refrigerated and stuff of that nature. So a little bit harder to deal with, but probiotics are pretty awesome.
Bless you.
One of the most important things with probiotics is after you take an antibiotic, you need to replace that. Because while antibiotics go through, they literally destroy probiotics. and so you need to go through and refill your probiotic. So a lot of times I tell people once they do an antibiotic for a couple of weeks, let's say 3 days you on it, about a week later when that stuff's kind of cleared out, you want to go get like a liquid probiotic, try to refill that as soon as possible, and then I'll usually go back to more of a powder form after that. It's kind of keeping the probiotics in the system, but the liquid probiotics do have a tendency to fill quicker because they're a little bit easier to absorb. I always lean towards liquid first. Liquid seems to be very easy for the body to digest. Gummies are up there too. Gummies are pretty good, but the cute gummies, that mastication idea, is they need to be broken down. If you don't break them down enough, our body doesn't absorb the best. Most of that stuff's supposed to be absorbed in the mouth. So in terms of that, when we have a gummy, we got to chew it. We give them multiple, like three chews of candy in down the throat, right? So we got to chew those a little bit more. With these gummies, those break down pretty well. That's why we actually made a lot of gummy supplements, because they do break down really easy, a lot better than pill form does. Powders are my third form. There's still to be a liquid kind of thing, but the big thing with powders is making sure that people get them shaken up enough and the powder doesn't become clumpy. The bigger thing is not the absorption side, is with powders, people have a tendency, like, they clump on them, they don't do a good job of, like, people just get annoyed of them, so we try to do powders as, like, the last option as we went through things. Glucosamine. So, joint relief, non-steroidal way to reduce pain. So glucosamine is, in the scientific studies, is kind of hit or miss. Meaning in some studies, like, oh, glucosamine is amazing, it's so good for the joints, and other studies, like, because it's supposed to literally take your cartilage, and it's supposed to, like, cushion your cartilage a little bit, right? So many studies say you can't rebuild cartilage, which probably more on that side than I am the other way, because if it was, people would just be down in glucosamine and the joints would be fine, right? But a lot of the stuff that comes from glucosamine comes less from the scientific studies that are on the side of rebuilding cartilage, and more just on the joint relief, cushioning the area, making sure that we're reducing inflammation is what it's coming down to. So if somebody wanted to stay away from going to the steroidal injection side of things, this would be my recommendation, having glucosamine in there. We did put it in our flex supplement, but non-steroidal way to reduce pain would be a little bit, but like steroidal stuff, there's a reason that it works great, because it works great, right? However, it is something that you're putting in your body, so some people love to not use that kind of thing, or instead become reliant on it. So there's a different way to be able to not become reliant on it. Inflammation is a huge issue in American society, for sure. Everybody has some variation of it. Like, a lot of people that come to us are like, oh my, I have lower back pain, and the pain is really like tons of inflammation, more than anything, realistically, from sitting all day long, stuff of that nature. People have inflammation consistently throughout all parts of the body. So inflammation is something we need to continue to work on consistently. Okay?
Yeah, it's a little bit like gas bubble.
Oh, yeah.
So make sure you're together.
So in terms of that, I want to we do need to continue to think about inflammation, ways to reduce as much as possible. Reducing processed foods would probably be the number one thing. If I took one takeaway from all that I just talked about on that slide, it's reduce processed foods, and instantly we could reduce supplement use. So even though we are trying to start selling supplements, our big reason why we add supplements to our gym was in the last 8 years, I've got more questions about supplements than anything else I've ever been asked about. Probably second most. First most is like, do I really need to eat vegetables? That's the question first. So it's like, do I really need? Yes, you do really need to eat vegetables. However, the second thing is we get a ton of questions about supplements. So because of that, I realized that we've looked for supplement brands everywhere. We just could never find the right combination of stuff. So we decided, let's do it ourselves. Let's figure it out ourselves. We found a company that kind of white labels it. We went through and told them these are the things that we're looking for. So they went through and built us out these things. But just because we did that, that doesn't mean I want people to become reliant on supplements. Our goal is, it's just tip top. We're just trying to give you one more tool to make you fit a full routine. So ideally, you would take a supplement, you'd utilize it. So like an omega-3, you utilize it to help you in this battle, and over time, when inflammation decreases, you would possibly not use that supplement anymore. There's going to be certain things, I think like a BCA, something I probably use all the time. Deep sleep might be something, like a fat burner, I don't think that should be something we're using all the time. I think that's something that you use for maybe a couple months, often for a while. So just in terms of that, when we talk about these things, I'm telling you different things, but I'm not looking for people to take a ton of supplements. I'm looking for them to take 1 or 2 supplements that fit their specific need or goal, and that's all they should be at a time. Everything else should still be coming through this part of the diet. So we need to make sure we think that, and conceptually think that as we go along. Because the first thing people think, oh, this is my cure, right? It's like, no, this is not, the cure's here. The cure's there, but I can't get you guys all to follow through all of those details. Plus, there's a few things. Like, omega-6 battle that we have here is a huge battle in the food quality of food that we have in the grocery store. So realistically, no matter how much we battle that one, we're probably going to need some type of supplementation for that. The other one that I really think is important is like the daily cleanse, because the daily cleanse, we just don't get enough digestive enzymes. And it's because we don't eat a lot of sauerkrauts or fermented foods. I definitely don't have any fermented foods in my diet, and fermented foods are where a lot of the probiotics and the digestive enzymes come from. It used to be, if you go back almost, we're in 2020, so it's probably over 100 years now, but over 100 years ago, everybody used to have a lot of fermented foods in their diet. The reason was because they didn't have refrigerators, right? So they'd have to put things down into like cold cellars, like grandma had food. And a lot of foods would have to be fermented to be able to handle that amount of time because they weren't frozen, right? So only really by the invention of a refrigerator did we start to change the amount of fermented foods in our diet. That's where a lot of our probiotics came from at that time. However, because we don't have that issue anymore, now so we're trying to drink kombucha and things like that to get there, when really like kombucha is not bad, but it's probably a pretty sugar-based thing. We could really get it through naturally eating more fermented foods, but fermented foods are not the easiest thing to get a hold of either in society. And most people don't love them. Like we, in our diet, we eat a lot of pickles. Pickles is my one way to get a decent amount of fermented food in it, but I also only like sweet pickles, so that's already adding extra sugar on it. So I don't like dill pickles are amazing. If you can do dill pickles, they are really, really good for you. I just don't like them, so I have to do the more sugar-based. Okay, so going into recovery supplements. So recovery really comes down to very workout specific, okay? So, I mean, if you have a hard laborer job and fit in this category as well, really what I'm talking to mostly on the recovery supplements is talking about how do I recover from workout to workout, to make my body feel a little bit better, so it's an athlete's exercise. So glutamine decreases muscle soreness after a tough workout, can help the body recover quicker from illness that creates body aches. So the first part on that is after a tough workout. So in our gym, I don't find glutamine as something that people have to take a lot because we specifically design our program to not create a ton of soreness. Now there are days, especially after deload week, this week people are like, oh my god, I'm sore. That's because we took a week off. That's more of that thing. But your natural day, you're probably not overly sore ton. So glutamine is probably not the most important in terms of that. We will have a glutamine supplement for people that do, like we have one lady that does awesome, and she does karate 4 days a week. She's sore a lot. That's a person that I want. Working out here 3 days a week, walking a little bit extra, probably not worth it. But the other part that's really cool about glutamine is it actually helps you recover from major sicknesses really quickly. Mainly major sicknesses are ones that really create a lot of body aches. If you're having a lot of body aches, you got done with something like a wicked fever and almost your body's sore for a couple days, glutamine goes through and helps the body repair very quickly and helps you recover from like body aches and stuff like that. So I think that'll be a cool tool for us to use in the future too for people that have some major sicknesses. I would have loved to honestly know more about glutamine during the COVID process. Now, because there might have been some things that people could be taking that while they were battling with COVID to be able to recover from that a little bit more because a lot of body aches is not happening at that time. Okay, BCAAs. This is a tool that I use a ton, probably almost to the limit of how much you're supposed to use in a day, because I use it, BCAAs, for one, post-workout recovery, two, I use it for my sweet tooth during the day. So what I use it for is BCAAs are branched chain amino acids. You get 3 essential amino acids that support recovery and muscle growth. So the 3 is valine, isoleucine, and a third one's on my head. But they're essential amino acids that help the body actually recover from workouts. They actually give you a little bit of extra energy as well. The body can utilize that protein right away. So the nice part about that, you just get it right. So I usually use it. Some people use it during a workout. You'll see at during the workout, you'll see a bunch of clients actually have some powder in their drink, in their water. That's what that is. That's a BCAA drink. Really good intra-workout, what it's called. It helps you maintain energy throughout the workout. You can start digesting that right away, digest it through the mouth, and your body instantly is able to continue to work out a little bit longer, which is awesome. In our workouts, probably the most important thing, people that do the early morning workouts, I really like it for the early morning workouts because people don't usually eat before they come to the workout, and that gives you a little bit of a boost during the workout, gives you a little bit so your blood glucose doesn't drop. However, my sweet spot is really after the workout. I like to drink it after workout because I don't like to drink it during the workout personally. I just like water during workout. So I drink it after a workout. It helps me get that recovery really quickly. I get my protein levels rebuilt pretty fast. And then I use it 2 other times in a day to drink with my water. 1, to give some flavor to my water, but 2, I get that satiety from it. So the proteins in there actually make you relatively full, and it allows me to go without snack periods a lot. So I can just have my 3 meals a day. So BCAAs are a pretty cool tool for that. So I use it a little bit differently than, not that it's recommended, than most people think about it, because I found that it just happens to be something that makes me super full. I've had a lot of clients over the years use it that are on weight loss goals, very specific weight loss goals, and I haven't used that because they have trouble snacking during the day, and we use BCAAs that. Well, BCAAs do have a limit. You don't want to have too many BCAAs during the day, and the limit based on most BCAAs is 3 scoops a day. So if you're doing 2 at a time, which I usually don't recommend because it's really powerful, 3 total scoops a day is the most that I recommend for PCAs because you can't have too much of that protein. The only negative that comes from that protein is like you will get really upset stomach and you'll end up with like diarrhea kind of stuff. So it's more like it's not like a negative like some vitamins. If you overeat certain vitamins, it's just a story real quick. Is I had a client, she bought a big thing of gummy vitamins. She was a pretty big client, and she had a tendency to binge eat, and she binge eat on an entire bottle of gummies.